Hello fellow citizens of Metaverse, is George from Blockchain TXB and today is the 11th of November 2022. Now last week there were three critical news that had the massive impact on the price of global cryptocurrency market, and in today's Metaverse Everything podcast, we are going to be discussing the impact it has had on cryptocurrency and blockchain platforms that are linked to Metaverse. So we all know about the FTX drama, we all know about the inflation numbers and the midterm elections. So last week was a critical week and unfortunately did not play out positively for the global cryptocurrency market. Now in today's Metaverse Everything podcast, I'm also going to be discussing my opinions on what industries will be impacted by Metaverse. Now look guys, I've been interviewing CEOs from all over the world, startups and businesses, and I also tend to track news about Metaverse. So I'm going to be giving my opinions, and I'm also going to be sharing if Metaverse economy will be bigger than the real world economy, and I'll be looking at different time horizons, that is 3 to 5 years from now, a decade from now, 2 decades from now, and couple of decades from now, if Metaverse industry will be bigger than the real world economy. And I'm also going to be sharing some challenges and potential threats to Metaverse that could possibly delay the mainstream adoption of Metaverse. And in today's episode guys, I'm also going to be sharing my opinion on the downfall of cryptocurrency exchange like FTX and Terra Luna, and how does it indirectly impact Metaverse, and also the downfall of Meta, because Meta has recently fired over 13% of its staff. So in today's episode, I'm going to be discussing the earnings call report in line with Metaverse, and I'm also going to be sharing few key points on Mark Zuckerberg's message to Meta, and I'm going to be explaining how that could potentially have an impact on the Metaverse industry. And like we do in every Metaverse Everything podcast, I'll be discussing top 5 Metaverse news from Dubai and UAE and top 5 Metaverse news from around the world. So let's kickstart today's episode. So welcome everyone, you're listening to the Metaverse Everything podcast, where we solely focus on Metaverse. We cover top 5 Metaverse news from around the world and top 5 Metaverse news from Dubai and UAE. And Metaverse Everything podcast is a research-driven podcast focusing on educational and informational content about Metaverse and its impact. And guys, Monday to Thursdays, I do have Crypto and Coffee at 8 podcast, where we cover top news and information pertaining to Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi and Metaverse. And how the series of episodes on the Crypto and Coffee at 8 works is, we usually cover some top news and information pertaining to the price of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well. News that has an impact in the cryptocurrency world, and occasionally I do cover some short and sweet news as well. And what I tend to do in my Crypto and Coffee at 8 podcast, I also look at 2 news and information related to Dubai, UAE and Middle East in the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi and Metaverse. And I also have an Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners get the chance to ask any questions from the cryptocurrency world, NFT, DeFi and Metaverse. So let's kickstart today's episode, because this week, luxury watches are dominating the Metaverse news. So when I'm going to be discussing Metaverse news from around the world, I have quite a lot of news from luxury watches and also in Dubai and UAE. So looks like this week is all about luxury watches merging with Metaverse. But let's kickstart today's episode, where I'm going to be discussing what industries will be impacted by Metaverse. Now, based on my experience interviewing CEOs and startups from all around the world and looking at information regarding Metaverse on a daily basis, I do feel at this point of time, there are 4 industries that are mostly impacted by Metaverse, and this could change over time. Now, the first industry which I'm noticing is impacted most by the Metaverse in a positive way is the fashion industry, followed by real estate, sporting industry, and this is mostly to do because of the FIFA World Cup, the education industry and banking industry. So let me share my points on how fashion industry is being affected by most in the Metaverse industry. Now lately, luxury brands have been very prompt in making the marks in the Metaverse. Since the last few months, fashion shows have, if not been one of the mainstream news so far as Metaverse is concerned. So fashion icons like Louis Vuitton and quite a lot of other, they have been having fashion shows in the Metaverse industry. Now these fashion icons are also issuing NFTs, because of which it is getting a lot of traction in the Metaverse news and also into the cryptocurrency platform. The second industry is real estate. Now look guys, we know Snoop Dogg's impact on Sandbox and Decentraland, and millions of dollars have been spent on real estate in the metaverse. And Damak Group from Dubai has pledged $150 million to spend on real estate in the metaverse. So plots of virtual lands are being sold for an extremely large amount. Now, what are your thoughts regarding real estate in the metaverse? I do feel that real estate in the metaverse makes sense only if the supply is restricted, somewhat similar to the supply of Bitcoin. If the supply is unlimited, then the value decreases because it's not unique anymore. So real estate does make a lot of impact in metaverse, and celebrities, artists have flocked to buy virtual lands in the metaverse, and Snoop Dogg's property, I believe, was sold for millions of dollars. Now listen to this, guys. The neighboring land in the metaverse, that is, the neighboring virtual property to Snoop Dogg, has also increased because of his affiliation to the virtual property. It's kind of replicating what the real estate is doing in the physical world in the virtual world. Now, the third most impact I've seen is the sporting industry, and this, guys, is mostly to do because of the FIFA World Cup, which takes place pretty soon in Qatar. And FIFA World Cup has seen a lot of brands entering into metaverse. In today's episode, I'm also going to be discussing, I believe, two news which is connected to FIFA World Cup. And sporting combined with 6G could transform the sporting industry. So this is an area which I do feel a decade from now would totally transform the sporting industry and the metaverse industry as well. Because unique experiences in sports are definitely in store in the metaverse once 6G becomes mainstream. And by that time, we most likely will also have quantum computing. Combining all of these things, I do feel that sporting industry, especially live sports, will be an absolutely unique experience, something which may have not experienced in the past. The fourth industry which I've noticed is the education sector. The education sector, particularly in Japan and China, have seen a massive adoption in the last few months, and education few decades from now could be one of the greatest use cases in the metaverse. Now imagine putting on your virtual reality headset or augmented reality headset and taking few steps back in time and learning about things with things coming into life will be an absolutely unique and interesting experience. The fifth and the final one which I've noticed is the banking industry. Now surprisingly, banking industry in Middle East have been really eager to enter into the metaverse. Now when I did have a couple of interviews, now they were saying that banking industries could be the most affected in a negative way, but surprisingly, looks like the banking industry is taking an initiative to get into the metaverse. And customer experience and employee training have already begun in the banking sector. And guys, a few months ago, I also talked about Emirates NBD. They have an accelerator program in combination with Microsoft and Dubai FinTech Hive, where they want to train employees on metaverse and quite a lot more. Now, if you're a startup, look at the accelerator program in DIFC FinTech Hive. And in today's Dubai Metaverse news, I'm also going to be sharing some information about DIFC. Now guys, this begs the next question. Will the metaverse economy will be bigger than the real world economy? Now look, 3 to 10 years down the line, VR or virtual headsets could be mainstream. So the big question is, could VR replace mobile phone? Now I do see that trend kicking in probably 5 years from now. And last week I did talk about Nokia, how they actually expressed interest in moving into virtual reality headsets, and they do feel that virtual reality headsets and augmented reality headset will make mobile phone completely obsolete, and new augmented reality focusing on longer usage will definitely replace mobile phones. So think of it, why would you want to use mobile phones when you have virtual reality headsets, augmented reality headsets with 10 times better user experience? Now you also need to understand that 3 to 10 years from now, the economies of scales will be better, so it'll be easier for companies to offer cheaper virtual reality and augmented reality headsets. So a decade or 2 decades from now, I do feel mobile phones will be replaced by metaverse headsets, that is virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality headsets. So probably 2 decades from now, I do feel there will be newer industries which will be created. But guys, what about political party in the metaverse? Now when I started the Metaverse Everything podcast, the very second podcast that I released, I did talk about a political party that exists solely in the metaverse. Now, what are your thoughts? Mention them in the comments below. Now, I do feel that there will be business use case beginning to exist only in the metaverse. So, these business use case may not have any use case, let's say, in the real world. So looks like Ready Player One, the movie and the book, could go mainstream in the metaverse industry as well. Now, 2 to 4 decades from now, that is 20 to 40 years down the line, and this depends on the test of time. Will the metaverse economy be bigger than the real world economy? I do have an inclination to say yes, because I do feel probably 3 to 4 decades from now, there will be new use cases, newer industries that could dominate. And we need to look back in time, look at what happened 40 years ago, and compare it to what we are living right now. Now, I do feel that metaverse in space could be a reality as well. Now, all these things seems fine, but it won't be an easy task, because currently there are a couple of challenges that we as a metaverse industry are facing. One of the biggest challenges that we are facing is a potential war between Russia and Ukraine, probably a nuclear war, and most likely we might see a new world order. Now listen guys, you need to follow Ray Dalio. He's if not one of the big icons in the finance industry, and he has mentioned 6 points which literally talks about a new world order is set to take place. So looks like, and with left-leaning Joe Biden, there's a very high possibility that China could be the new world order. So there is this notion that we talk about, is the world modernizing or is it Americanizing? Now as time goes by, that would definitely change, and there might also be an economic collapse. And guys, if you're looking at the way how things are working, especially the inflation numbers which got released last week, there is a very high possibility that we might have an economic collapse, and that could just delay the adoption. And guys, what about newer technologies that has not been identified yet? So maybe a decade or 2 decades from now, newer technologies could possibly derail or delay the mainstream adoption of metaverse. And some of the potential threats that I see is space exploration. And guys, if you were to ask yourself, if you were given an option to go and explore space or get into the metaverse, which one would you pick? Now remember guys, I'm talking about this at least 20 to 40 years from now. And by that time, I do feel neurotechnology could be mainstream as well. But all that thing being said, the current threat that we are facing is the nuclear war. And I do hope that things do tend to settle down. Now, if you looked at what's going on, and last week, FTX exchange has had a massive impact on the global cryptocurrency market. And last week, there was also midterm elections, and the red wave did meet with some blue wall, and there were inflation numbers out. Now let's kickstart by talking about the cryptocurrency news, because FTX exchange did completely devastate the global cryptocurrency market. Over $200 billion has been wiped off from the global cryptocurrency market. Now right now in Twitter, the trend that is going on in Lehman Brothers, that is, they are comparing FTX's exchange to the impact of Lehman Brothers, which had the massive collapse in the world in 2008. Now listen to me guys, FTX exchange is not the Lehman Brothers. Tether USDT could be the Lehman Brothers, and I really am hoping that Tether USDT does not collapse. Now, if you do want to find out more information about Tether USDT, listen to my Crypto and Coffee a Day podcast. And one thing you need to understand guys, there is a lot of incorrect information circulating in LinkedIn as well as on Twitter so far as FTX exchange is concerned. There are people blaming Binance for the fallout of FTX exchange. Binance did not kill FTX exchange. FTX killed FTX. And the whole story started with CoinDesk that released a report that showed unfortunate findings from its sister firm, that is Alameda Research, and they found out that FTX exchange did create funds out of thin air. Now because of that, there is a massive impact on the price of global cryptocurrency market and the price of cryptocurrency and metaverse platforms that are linked to metaverse. So you truly need to understand how cryptocurrencies does actually impact metaverse. Now to be honest, I feel there are only 3 areas where cryptocurrency merges with metaverse. The first one is medium of exchange, payments, and NFTs. Now you really need to understand that cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology have relatively lesser use case with metaverse. So you need to understand the limited use case of cryptocurrencies and blockchain so far as metaverse is concerned. Even the whole Web 3.0, the hype versus reality. Now in my Metaverse Everything podcast, I did share the limited use case of Web 3.0 in metaverse. So this whole notion of self-sovereign identity sounds great, but do we actually need it? Now if you look at blockchain trilemma, you truly need to understand security, scalability, and decentralization. And keeping that thing in mind, unfortunately guys, I don't think so any blockchain platforms are ready for Metaverse. Now, if you look at Decentraland, the user experience is going back to 1990s. The avatars and the slow systems does not make Metaverse an industry to transition from real world to Metaverse, because you need to remember the Metaverse industry experience needs to be at least 10 times better than the current experience that we have. Now, keeping all these things in mind, unfortunately, guys, cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, and Web 3.0 have very limited use case when it comes to Metaverse. So, merging of these two areas and understanding what it is really critical. Now, listen to my previous podcast. I did mention there are very few areas where Web 3.0 merges with Metaverse. Unfortunately, what startups and firms tend to do is they tend to use the buzzword of Web 3.0, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, self-sovereign identity to get investments from venture capital and hedge funds. If you look at the facts, we are at least a couple of decades for both of these things to merge. Now, it could be possible maybe a decade or 2 decades from now, cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology will be an ideal use case of Metaverse. Now, look, guys, because of the FTX drama, the market cap and 24-hour trading volume of cryptocurrencies and blockchain platform has severely been affected. Now, what I tend to do is I tend to release a Metaverse Everything podcast every Fridays. And last Friday, that is the 4th of November, the market cap was $13.16 billion. Because of FTX exchange drama, the market cap has fallen down by almost $4 billion. And the market cap as of 11th of November for cryptocurrency and blockchain platforms that are linked to Metaverse is $9.45 billion. Now, the trading volume is high, but that just means a lot of selling is going on. So let me do one thing. I'm just going to read out the top 5 cryptocurrency and blockchain Metaverse platforms, and I'm going to compare their price to what it is in comparison to the last 7 days. Apecoin is at $3.05, and since the last 7 days, it is down by 33.72%. Since the last 24 hours, it is down by 13.29%. Decentraland or Mana, the price is 48 cents. This is absolutely ridiculous. And since the last 7 days, it is down by 27.92%. Since the last 24 hours, it is down by 8.05%. The Sandbox or Sand is down to 61 cents. Since the last 7 days, it is down by 28.21%. Since the last 24 hours, it is down by 7.33%. Axie Infinity or AXS, the price is down to $6.78. Since the last 7 days, it is down by 26.46%. Since the last 24 hours, it is down by 6.37%. And Teta Network or Theta, which had a phenomenal last month, is also down by 26.99% since the last 7 days and down by 5.34%. Now, because of FTX's drama, the prices have gone down by well over 25% for Apecoin, Decentraland, Sandbox, Axie Infinity, and Theta Network. Now, if you truly look at it, none of these platforms are perfect use case for Metaverse now. It could be possible that 3 to 5 years down the line, when the whole blockchain trilemma is fixed, then they would merge really well with Metaverse. Now, you also need to understand that the downfall of FTX and Terra Luna makes perfect use case for stable coins. Now, what I do feel, guys, is stable coin and its volume has increased 5 times since the collapse. So look at Tether USDT's volume, especially since the last 5 days. And in my Crypto and Coffee at 8 podcast, I cover the stablecoin volume on a daily basis. Now, in 2023, on an average day, the stablecoin volumes used to be around 30 to 40 odd billion dollars, but because of the FTX drama, the stablecoin volume has jumped up to $180 billion per day. Now, stablecoins do make perfect sense in the Metaverse, and along with stablecoins, unfortunately, central bank digital currencies or CBDCs do make an ideal use case of Metaverse. Now listen, guys, I'm not a massive advocate of central bank digital currencies or CBDCs, but if CBDCs are used in the Metaverse, you will not see a problem like FTX Exchange or Terra Luna and potentially Tether USDT in the near future. Now listen, guys, if you are into cryptocurrency space, look at CoinDesk's drama between Tether USDT, because CoinDesk was the company that released a report regarding FTX Exchange that led to the downfall of FTX Exchange, and CoinDesk also has some strong drama between Tether USDT. And both the cases, I do feel that CoinDesk is 100% right. Now, guys, let's look at the massive collapse that did take place last week, and that is to do with Meta. Now, Meta's CEO, that is Mark Zuckerberg, did write a letter and called as the Mark Zuckerberg's message. I'm going to be touching base on that, but before that, let me share some information regarding its earnings calls report, because once again, there's a lot of fake news and incorrect information regarding Facebook or Meta. And guys, listen, I am not a fan of censorship protocol, that is Facebook or Meta, but I'm not a fan of fake news and incorrect news as well. So what I'd really urge you to do is, when you're looking at Meta's impact on Metaverse, make sure you get information from the first source. So look at the earnings call report. Now, in that earnings calls report, they actually talked about click-to-messaging ads, and businesses have seen an increase so far as ads on Facebook and Instagram is concerned. And the profit that Meta made was $9 billion annual rate. Now, surprisingly, WhatsApp profit grew, and it grew by $1.5 billion in the third quarter of 2022, which is more than 80%. So when you're looking at all the news regarding Meta, you need to take these into consideration as well. And the quarter 3 total revenue was $27.7 billion, down by 4% or up 2% on a constant basis. Now listen to this, guys. In the earnings calls report, they have clearly mentioned because of the dollar strengthening, that has had a negative impact on Meta's profit volume. Now, if the dollar would have remained constant, their profit would have been $1.8 billion higher. Now, just to give you a very brief overview, you need to understand what dollar DY index is. So what has happened in the last few months is, because of the inflation, the dollar value has gone high. And this is a problem for Facebook and other companies that have their operations outside of US. So what that means is, because the dollar value is high, and if you're doing your business, let's say in Europe and in your other countries, when the profit is taken from those countries and converted and sent back to US, because the dollar value is high, it shows ridiculously less amount. Now, if the dollar index was constant, Meta or Facebook would have been a profit at $1.8 billion. And guys, listen, one thing which people don't realize so far as the laying off is concerned, in the quarter 3 earnings calls report, Meta did actually mention that they hired 3,700 new hirees. Keeping all these things in mind, the earnings report is not as bad. Now, they did have real strong engagement, particularly to do with investments in artificial intelligence, and the ad impressions on price paid per ad, particularly to do with Reels, has gone a significant increase. Now, the correct information is that Meta did face a loss of $600 million, but majority was spent on research and development. So when you're looking at any information regarding Metaverse, it's so critical that you look at information from first source. Now, that all being said, last week Mark Zuckerberg did write a letter to its employees, and what that letter states is that they have reduced the team by 13%. So unfortunately, more than 11,000 employees all over the world were made redundant. Now, they did that to have a leaner and more efficient business, and they're going to be extending the hiring freeze in quarter 1. Now, in that letter, I must admit that Mark Zuckerberg did put a lot of blame game. He did say about COVID-19, and because of COVID-19, the increase of online revenue comments increased, and they expected that thing to continue. But because of the macro downturn, increased competition, and ad signal loss, the revenue was lower than expected. And guys, the reason why they made people redundant is because they wanted to be capital efficient, and they're spending a lot of funds on AI discovery engine and ads on business platform. And he actually said, we have cut costs across our businesses, including scaling back budgets, reducing perks, and shrinking our real estate footprint. And you need to understand they're also restructuring to increase efficiency, not necessarily because they are a dying business. And they're also focusing on reducing the real estate footprint. Now, really, I'm not sure what that means. But a surprising thing which he mentioned in this message was that they're focusing on desk sharing, which means employees most likely would be sharing desk. But if you look at the Quest Pro headset, that is catered purely for business, and they have tie-up with Accenture and Microsoft. So it's going to be a really interesting next few quarter to truly understand the direction of Meta and Metaverse. And they're focusing heavily on AI infrastructure. So when you're talking about Meta's impact on Metaverse, you truly need to have a background of these things so you get a thorough, accurate assessment of what is going on regarding Meta and its impact in Metaverse. Now, guys, I'm going to be discussing the top 5 Metaverse news from around the world. And surprisingly, guys, this week is dominated by luxury watches. So there are quite a lot of news regarding luxury watches combining with Metaverse. So the first news is about Hublot. And Hublot unveils largest Metaverse football stadium ahead of FIFA World Cup Qatar 2024. And you need to remember they are the official timekeeper in the world of football. So the luxury watchmaker has entered the Metaverse with a virtual event space. So go to the website, read through the article, and the information clearly states that they are heading into Metaverse. Now, apart from Hublot, even Rolex, the luxury watch, is entering in the Metaverse. So the Swiss luxury watch Rolex is looking to get into the Metaverse, and this information, guys, is once again shown to us by Mike Condidis. Now, I mentioned him several times in the podcast, and he's a guy who looks at patents, and he actually shares screenshots the moment any luxury brand or any top companies have patented for Metaverse. So follow him on Twitter because he actually shares screenshots and the official link when any luxury brand or any high-tech brand have patented NFTs or anything to do with NFTs and Metaverse. So if you want to stay one step ahead, do follow Mike Condidis via Twitter. His Twitter ID and all the details are in the show notes below. So Rolex getting into Metaverse is definitely a big deal. Now, guys, the next news that I'd like to talk about is where heavy metal merges with Metaverse, and Ozfest, which is organized by Ozzy Osbourne and his wife Sharon Osbourne, they are getting into Metaverse, and Ozfest is set to become the first real-life festival to be staged in the Metaverse with performances from Ozzy Osbourne, Motorhead, Megadeth, Black Sabbath, and quite a lot more. It's going to be really interesting to see how Decentraland has the capabilities to handle live events. And to be honest, guys, I'm a massive heavy metal freak. Now, I really am not sure if I'd be willing to use my virtual reality headset or augmented reality headset, because the live experience in a heavy metal concert is like absolutely no other. But nonetheless, definitely brilliant news for Metaverse and the heavy metal community as well. The fourth news that I'd like to talk about is about FIFA World Cup, and this is to do with experience for fans. So a digital replica of Lusail Stadium in FIFA's virtual universe is part of the soccer organization, and this news is published by Bloomberg. So essentially, a virtual property can be raffled off as a prize for a lucky soccer fan. So listen, if you're into soccer, if you're into the FIFA World Cup, this is a great opportunity. So read through the article. Now, the fifth news is all the way from China. Now, historically, China and India has had a love-hate relationship for cryptocurrencies and also digital assets. But this news is to do with NFTs, and China looks like they're saying no NFT Metaverse. So what has happened is the city of Wuhan has removed NFTs from Metaverse plans amid regulatory troubles in China. So Wuhan harbors ambitious plans to build at least 2 Metaverse industrial estates before 2025, but they have removed the plan for Metaverse. So it's going to be really interesting to see the development that has on the NFT space as well. Now, one thing which I did mention earlier, historically, NFTs are linked to cryptocurrencies, but NFTs can be issued with central bank digital currencies as well. And China's digital yuan is, if not one of the biggest CBDCs project. Now, it could be possible that in the near future, NFTs in Wuhan city could be issued by central bank digital currencies. And if that thing happens, guys, I do think central bank digital currencies all over the world will be trying to replicate it. And as much as I dislike CBDCs, I do feel that they make a perfect use case in the Metaverse. Now, guys, let's talk about some massive news from Dubai and UAE. And the first news is by DIFC, that is Dubai International Finance Center, and they had an Investor Day. And the event saw avatars of 41 startup founders from DIFC's 2022 FinTech Accelerator program, and they showcased innovation technologies to virtual incarnations of investors, industry leaders, and the program's financial and knowledge partners. So if you really want to have a quick look at what the Investor Day program is, go to the Instagram profile, because in the story, they are providing some really crucial information. And I did register for the event, but unfortunately I could not attend, so I did receive emails giving further information. The next newscast is again about luxury watch, and Chronoswiss has made its way to UAE and has become the first luxury watch brand to set up shop in the Metaverse that will allow customers to purchase physical watches in store as well as watches in the Metaverse for a digitized avatar. So luxury watches are definitely making a lot of news this particular week so far as Metaverse is concerned. Now the third news is to do with football legends, and earlier today, Quantum Pay welcomed football legends for the unveiling of a new Metaverse experience. So Michael Salgado, Patrick Kluivert, and the legendary Roberto Carlos were present at the event that will officially commence their FIFA campaign. And this event was held at Alice Grill Avenue. Now listen guys, this was a free event. It was an absolute must event. And I do believe that they were giving out FIFA tickets that is going to be held in Qatar pretty soon. So if you're a soccer fan, definitely follow up with Quantum Pay. Now the fourth news is once again about luxury brand, and this is to do with Jacob & Co. And Jacob & Co. offered Dubai Edition watch in exchange for NFTs at Meta's nightclub Vision. Now I did cover this news a few months ago where the H Hotel in Dubai was moving into Metaverse by nightclub called Vision, and Jacob & Co. moves into Metaverse gifting watches to NFT owners from the Dubai verse. So Jacob & Co. moves into Metaverse gifting watches to NFT owners from the H Dubai venue. So it's going to be a really cool and interesting concept. Now I'm not sure if this trend of luxury watches being in the Metaverse would continue in 2023, but I do remember Kevin O'Leary, who's a Canadian and a UAE citizen, did have a really interesting podcast with Pompliano, and he talked about NFTs, and he has a plethora of high net worthy individuals. And what he is doing is he's trying to convince the high net worthy individuals to get into NFTs as opposed to art. So it's going to be possible that in 2023, a lot of high net worthy individuals will be getting into NFTs. Now the fifth and final news that I'd like to share is all the way from ADGM, that is Abu Dhabi Global Market. And the news is they are getting into Metaverse as well. So the Abu Dhabi Global Market Arbitration Center, the state-of-the-art hearing facility for arbitration and mediation situated in the International Finance Center of UAE's capital, has launched a world's first service that holds mediation in the Metaverse. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that thing plays out. So the ADGM, or the Abu Dhabi Global Market Arbitration Center, has announced the launch of world's first service that hosts mediation in the Metaverse. So this service, guys, will revolutionize the delivery of mediation across the globe immediately, transforming the court and ex mediation scheme conducted by ADGM courts into the next generation approach to mediation. So let me explain how mediation works. Mediation enables parties to negotiate a settlement of the dispute with utmost confidentiality with an impartial mediator. Now imagine doing this in a Metaverse. It is a consensual process where a decision is not imposed upon the parties. Early settlement of disputes through mediation helps preserve business relationship and frees up commerce resources, allowing organizations to focus on core business priorities. Now, using latest Web3 technologies available, the ADGM mediation in the Metaverse service will provide a more immersive experience, enhancing virtual mediation by allowing the participants to access a 3D office space. Now, guys, you need to remember there are very few areas where Web 3.0 merges with Metaverse, and the login details is one of the crucial areas where Web 3.0 merges with Metaverse. So rather than having an email address to log in to a Metaverse platform, it's so critical that you use your private key, which is connected to your public key, which is connected to your public address, that is used as a login ID. But nonetheless, the initiative is in line with UAE's commitment to reduce the carbon footprint of international dispute resolution. So definitely brilliant stuff. And thereby they will be eliminating the need to travel to in-person meetings by providing digitally enabled solutions to resolve disputes on a global scale, which is a positive step forward. Now this is especially important at a time when sustainability is a main area of focus for the boardroom executives. So this move will definitely save a lot of time, it saves a lot of cost, and with Metaverse, hopefully it was a brilliant, unique experience. That is where quality kicks in. So that's everything, guys, on the Metaverse Everything podcast. And if you do like listening to this podcast, please give it a 5-star rating and share the word across. And remember, guys, if you do have any feedback or suggestions, drop me an email to info@blockchaindxb.com or info@area2071.com. And remember guys, Monday to Thursdays, 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. we have Crypto and Coffee at 8 podcast, where we cover top news and information pertaining to Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. And how the series of episodes in the Crypto and Coffee at 8 works is, we usually cover some top news and information pertaining to the price of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well, news that has an impact in the cryptocurrency world. The other two news and information is related to Dubai, UAE, and Middle East. In the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. And Monday to Thursdays, we also have an Ask Me Anything series where you listeners can ask any questions from the cryptocurrency world. And what you're listening to right now is the Metaverse Everything podcast, which is a research-driven podcast focusing on educational and informational content about Metaverse and its impact. So thanks so much for listening and have a brilliant weekend ahead. Bye-bye.